To episode 2 of DisruptEDTV. This afternoon we have a buddy in the house. So this afternoon it is myself, Claire Amos, Steve Mouldy here back to run the show with me, and we've got a special guest star with Stephen Smith sitting to my right this afternoon.
Gracious, my full name. I really only get that when I'm in trouble by my mother. So thank you very much for having me in the studio. It's cool to be here. Great to have a chance to be part of the conversation.
Awesome. And today we're looking at the topic of technology in schools, and we're really keen to hear from you if there's specific things you would like to discuss. Some of the things we'll be looking at is for the teachers out there, the educators, looking at the concept of bring your own device and BYOD. Is it working? How do we make schools make the most of it? How do students make the most of it? And anything you'd like to know around that. There is, of course, the ongoing controversy around cell phones in schools and whether we should be banning them because they're evil.
Every year at this time
it comes out. It is. It's one of those things that always comes up, isn't it?
And we'll touch on the concepts of screen time. Is there such a thing as too much? Social media, digital citizenship. And then also we'll hopefully look at some of the stuff on the horizon around big data, artificial intelligence, robots. What else? What else is happening in the education scene? So to kick us off, bring your own device. We've all been in different spaces and places around the concept of bring your own device. What's been some of your experiences, and what are some of your tips and takeaways for both schools and students, and and maybe even the parents out there as well?
And I think the interesting thing with this is that when you go back about 10 years, the rush was on and every school was going, right, let's bring all the devices in.
Yeah.
And so it was get it all in, and then everyone went, oh, hang on, we haven't really thought about this. We've just gone, oh, well, we've got to race that school down the road so that we've got the technology, and we can say to everyone, look, we're a technology school, we're up with the times. And then there was kind of a bit of a swing back the other way, and after a few years, people just kind of went, oh, hang on, no, this technology's really bad. Yeah. And now I think we're kind of at that time where...
let's bring your own distractions.
Yeah. and now everyone's
your own
sort of in that point we're going, well, actually, let's think about this and actually, think about when we're using it for what purpose and why, which is actually, I guess the key discussion that's been happening amongst some people for a while, and now it seems that's the thing that's actually starting to spread.
Yeah, totally. I think that's a really good point, that it was all about bringing a thing, and that was kind of the focus, was bring all your things in, and then we'll be digitally learning, or we'll be digital teachers, and we'll be doing digital tasks because we have computers in the classroom. And I think one of the first things I looked at was, the SAMR model, and are we just purely bringing in a computer to substitute a worksheet for a scanned worksheet? I've got a digital lesson, I'm going to print it out, or I'm going to scan it, and the kids can print it out and write on it. And you kind of look at that and go, is that any better than actually using a bit of paper with a pen? And I think if the device, whatever it is not adding value to what you're doing, we really need to think about why we're doing it.
Yeah, and I think we've seen a bit of a gap occur, and a widening gap in those schools that have been strategic and done the thinking first and done it in quite a mindful way, and it has actually transformed the way that they're delivering teaching and learning. Totally. And then there are other schools out there that still tentatively dipped their toes in. And my theory is that when schools dipped their toes in and only go half in, like, ask them to bring their devices, but if they can't bring one, that's okay. Or we'll ask the teachers to use to do online stuff, but they don't demand it of them. And all that ends up happening is that it increases teacher workload because they're having to design stuff for online tasks, design stuff for paper-based tasks, and the kids are getting frustrated because they're saying, oh, that guy's not bought their computer. Oh, that teacher's not making us use our device. What a big fat waste of money and time.
And you get those spirals, right? Where if people all bring it, and the teacher goes, awesome, they're all bringing the devices, so I can plan for this, and we can really use it. And so you get all the good thing happens, and it all moves forward. Whereas you then get the bit where if like 17 out of the 30 kids have brought their device, and the teacher goes, oh, well, that was a waste of 3 hours planning for this big thing that I wanted to do, and so then they don't plan it, and the next day when actually 25 kids have brought their devices but they're not asked to use it, and it's like, oh, well, why did I bother bringing it? And you get those downward spirals with it.
I think that's a really important point, and all of us are parents with kids who are at different stages of schools, and it's interesting seeing it from a parent side of things as well, saying, if my son says, well, I only use my computer in one class, it's like, well, why are we taking it? And I can kind of get that side of things. If we're not giving them a reason to bring it, then why are they investing in this amazing piece of technology?
I think we owe it to the young people, and we owe it actually to the parents who invested in those young people to go all in.
Oh, totally.
And I think some schools mistake going all in about being obsessed about technology in and of itself. It isn't that. It's just that you're not actually going to leverage the benefits of technology and the creativity that it brings unless you are all in.
Oh, for sure.
And so there's absolutely no point doing it in a half-assed, bring a device if you want to way. You're actually wasting people's time, you're wasting money, you're wasting energy. And actually, if my kids aren't at a school where they're doing it properly, they might as well go back doing it on pen and paper because they just feel frustrated.
Totally. And I think it has... And as you say, it has its place, and there are some amazing things you can do. And then there are some times when you might go analog and go back to a bit of paper and a pen and have a go at it, because it's not going to be, I think one misconception you have is that you go, we want to use digital devices, so periods 1 to 6 we're going to be an hour long, so 6 hours on there doing stuff. Not necessarily. No. There are some things that are better done offline.
So where we've seen it work, and the schools I've been in where it's worked, there's been a few really key ingredients. And the first thing is that you actually universally decide that we are all doing this. Yeah. And people might feel like you've been a bit sort of full on in dictating that everybody has to use a platform. And actually, I don't care what the plan, if it's Moodle or if it's Google Classroom, you simply need to decide on one to start off. And you need to all commit to using it. And you need to all commit to being your sort of baseline go-to way of delivering learning in that classroom. But then you go from there, and and it doesn't mean you have to be online all day, and it doesn't mean that you're giving up.
And it shouldn't actually mean you're online.
No,
it's exactly
but
right.
I do think where it's worked, they've made the commitment to going all in. And I think we've got to stop sitting around going, oh, you can't presume kids can afford a device. Oh, you can't presume that they're going to cope with the device. Oh, it's going to be a distraction. There are creative ways around all of those issues and problems in terms of providing kids with the access to the devices.
Some of the most creative learning that's happening in schools is actually happening in those lower decile schools where they've all been provided with the Chromebooks. Yeah. And so the teachers have gone, right, we've all got the devices, now let's really think about how we use these to get the best value in learning for our kids.
Totally.
And that's actually where some of the best learning is occurring.
And you mentioned the SAMR model. Do you want to just explain that to people, just in case those that aren't educators or maybe aren't that familiar with the specific
So it's about looking at 4 different levels of learning, where you start at the very basic with pure substitution. And a great example of that is where I grab an old folder of work, put on the photocopier and scan the 100 pages of it, and now I've got a digital resource. Well, I really haven't. I've got a digital version of an analog lesson, and nothing has changed. Now then you might move
and
up
if you're
to the
doing
next.
that, you may as well still actually just be doing it on paper.
Totally right.
Of the times.
The only advantage is I don't have that massive folder sitting above my desk that could fall off the shelf and kill me. So, which, well, bonus, maybe perhaps. So then we move up and looking at augmentation. So we slightly change that idea, and then moving right through the model to the very, very top. The R is the redefinition, where you actually change the way you do it. So if I'm thinking about finding out what's happening about current events around the world, give the kids their phones, switch the camera on, go and make a news report interviewing a person in XYZ place and tell us what's going on. And let's all have a look at a 2-minute movie clip about what's going on in that place. So you completely redefine what you were doing originally. Same ideas are going on, but I would kind of argue there that giving a kid a task of making a movie or go and make a news broadcast about something that's going on is far more engaging than write down the 5 W's in the H order, the where, what, who, when, I can't remember.
Whatever's, yeah.
That one. So it's moving through a level of different types of activity where the digital device, whatever it is an integral part of what you're doing. And there's a whole lot of information about that, about looking at how we can change our learning using these things well.
Yeah, and also I think we've got to acknowledge the fact that you are never going to introduce another set of buzzwords.
Good.
Agency.
Okay, sweet.
And,
Is someone someone keeping a tally of these?
But in terms of
swear word jar, buzzword jar.
Shush. Anyway,
Sorry,
in terms of learner agency and students actually taking control of their learning, quite simply is not possible, I don't believe, unless you've got a digitally connected classroom. I think people are kidding themselves if the power can be handed over. And I sometimes wonder if that's sitting at the heart of the reason why people aren't so quick to adopt it, that maybe people are clinging, or educators are clinging on to the sense of who has the control in the classroom.
Or what works.
Yeah.
Well, it works. It's always worked. It's worked for the last 15 years. I mean, I was guilty of that as well. You know, I know this works really well, so I'm just going to bust back to it again. But I think, as you say, we owe it to the kids and to the parents to be the best we can be, I think.
Yeah.
And some days you come home and you go, I could have done that better.
There's a lot of research out there now that actually says, look, actually when students have some choice or some ownership of that stuff, or even better if they have the authorship of that task, that actually ends up in much better learning outcomes for them.
Yeah.
What the devices do is it's a tool that allows that to happen easier.
Yeah.
So like if I think at the moment, like obviously in a school with like under 50 students, providing languages is really difficult. You know, we can get one person to kind of teach one language, whereas we can use some of the apps that are out there.
Yeah.
And you might have, 7 people learning Spanish and 3 learning Italian,
Nice.
and these kids over here doing German, and then these ones over here Mandarin, and that can all happen if the teacher's willing to go, yep, you do your thing, and my role actually now changes from just transmission of the one language that I can help you out with a little bit of, to actually being the, hey, what are you stuck with? How can I help you with that?
Or the option that the teacher sits down and becomes a learner as well.
Yeah.
You know,
learn
I don't
alongside.
know Te Reo, I don't know Esperanto, which a friend of mine is currently learning. I'm going to sit down and learn with you. And if we think about modelling the use of a digital device really, really well, be a learner as well.
Yeah. And so we've got to see it as an opportunity for students to take control of their learning and to learn how to learn. Because if there's, one thing we know for sure is this generation more than any other is going to have to keep on learning.
Oh, for sure.
And so we've got to give them access. And people panic and want to close down their access to things like cell phones and their devices because heaven forbid they might get distracted and play Candy Crush and do a TikTok video.
And how many of the adults that are saying that have actually looked at what they've done during that day as well? How many times were they at work and going, actually I'm going to go cruise Facebook, or I'm actually going to play a little bit of this game for a little bit. And that's the thing to me. I always think that hypocrisy at times in terms of, often they'll say, well, at home we have this rule, and so the kids' devices get put there. So, what about your device? Does that get put aside for the same amount of time?
Where's your device at bedtime?
And we've definitely caught ourselves at home, didn't we decide? Oh yeah, actually, sorry, that's me. And it is that thing now where I, like, when I get home from work, I actually make that real decision. I've got to put that phone way up there because actually now it's my time to be present with the family.
Yeah, for sure.
And it's the same thing, when we then think if they're saying that about their kids, what are they?
Do you think, what's everyone's position on cell phones in the classroom? So there's this, what feels like a friggin' circular and endless debate around if we should be debating cell phones. And there's this hilarious narrative that makes out that once you ban cell phones, it's like kids are like in The Sound of Music dancing, twirling their arms in the air out in the green fields because you've taken their cell phone away and you've freed them up to reconnect with nature and one another face to face.
Whoa, okay.
And to me, so much of that is built on this, our generation's definition of how you connect.
Totally right.
Yeah.
Totally right.
Yeah.
It's a really interesting point, and I think I look at my son who has got recently back into Minecraft and is busily building things, having conversations with his mates who are at their houses building stuff together collaboratively. So they're hanging out, but they're not hanging out in the same room.
Yeah.
You know, and so it's really interesting in that way. I mean, we look at the ability of a phone or any device to connect people.
Yeah.
And sure, you can look at bad instances of people connecting digitally, but if you think about the kids in your class who may be the quiet ones, they're going to find their tribe. They're going to be able to share stuff. It's going to enable more sharing of things that kids who may not necessarily be those oversharers.
Yeah.
It's a new way for them to do it. And the old idea of distractions is a good one. I kind of liken it to a calculator. A calculator can distract you.
Right, boobs.
Yeah. Are we allowed to say that? I was going to say that. I was going to say boil eggs, but okay, yeah, good. You can draw on the back of your book. You can draw a crazy
Stare
picture
out the
on
window.
desk.
Off into the distance. Rangitata had great views out of some windows.
And I know, yeah, I know what people are going to say. Yeah, the phone is far more engaging, and yes, it is.
Yeah.
But as a teacher, am I going to sit in the front of my classroom at my desk with my head in something while the kids are doing something down there? I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
Or am I going to cruise around? The best thing I ever did as an educator was ditch my desk and ditch my chair.
Yeah.
It's an easy distraction tool if the teacher is stuck in one part of the room. If they're actually moving around, it's not.
And part of the problem is it's a brutal measure of engagement in the teaching and learning that's been offered up.
Yeah.
And I know it's not just the job of the teacher to entertain and engage 24/7. We want our students to be able to manage themselves, but there is that idea that actually people locking up cell phones in boxes is only actually making it harder for them to see who's disengaged. Like, I actually find it's quite a powerful tool in the classroom for a really quick measure. And actually, often you need to check if they're disengaged. I can't, the number of times where I've presumed they're doing something they're not supposed to be doing, and they're looking up something or they're doing something is surprising as well.
Friends of ours have a daughter that last year actually got in all kinds of trouble because she was on a Chromebook and used Google Hangouts to send a message to one of the other kids in the class, and so got all kinds of, we've told you not to use Google Hangouts, and actually what she'd done was she didn't want to get up and walk across the room in front of other people to ask for help from someone, and so she'd gone, hey, and sent it via a question.
And if you think how many offices or work organisations, that's exactly the model they will use to communicate.
Yeah.
They will fire a quick message.
The Slack channels.
Yeah, they'll fire a quick message, and it's a way to get a real quick answer. So perhaps that's actually showing some really authentic way of using a tool.
And I think at no point in time, and the thing I talk about with my team is that I have refused to ban cell phones at a school-wide level.
Right.
And it won't be part of our policy under my watch.
Mm-hmm.
But I've also like to remind teachers that they also are the ones in charge of their domain in a sense. So,
Totally.
Of course you've got the right to say, now's not the time.
Yep.
Actually, we're having a focused discussion. Put those away. Make sure they're down. I'm going to create a cell phone stack if you don't.
Yeah, for sure.
And so I don't think we ever want to forget the fact that the teacher actually is in charge. And I know some teachers say that you can't ban cell phones, suddenly think, oh, so it's okay for kids to be on cell phones. No, we're not saying that.
No.
We're just saying that we're recognising them as a really powerful tool. We're recognising them as a natural, important part of a teenage ecosystem.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd much rather teach students how to manage it. I read a really interesting article by Stephen Hopper the other day through Medium, and it's why banning technology from schools is not the answer. And he talks about the concept, and it's ironic me talking about this because I'm not this, about becoming indistractable. And that actually we've got a really neat opportunity to work with young people to talk about technology mindfulness, making sure that young people and the adults we work in understand the myth of multitasking. I still try and pull that one quite often. And also that we talk about time management and being on and off our devices. And actually, if we ban cell phones universally, are we robbing our young people of a really important opportunity to start learning those things?
I mean, to me, it comes down to if take the focus off the what is in front of you, and actually just start focusing on the actual learning and and what is you wanting people to achieve. You think, what's the tool that's going to help us do that? And that's the tools that should be on the table.
And you mentioned it before, and you've talked about it as well. Teachers have to get off their backsides. You're not going to be able to have a traditionally set up classroom with rows of desks and you up the front of the classroom and them on devices.
No.
It's a recipe for disaster. So you either park yourself at the back, or even better, you're in amongst your students. And I absolutely agree that getting rid of the teacher desk is fundamental.
Great. Yeah, and teacher desk and chair, that's get rid of them. And I think we're talking about the idea of banning and about you can't have a wholesale ban. I think some really nice directions from schools, things like I've seen in the past, it stays in such and such until it's invited to be used. Or I talked to an educator who has a big circle sticker on each of the desks, and the kids actually put their phones face down in the sticker on their desk, so they're visible. They're not hidden in their pockets.
That's learning to manage their
devices. They're not hidden in their pockets. They're on their bags. They're not fossicking around. You can see where they are, and it's not until you're invited to use them that they are able to use that way.
And it's that same thing again. Like, it's about self-management. We can't just expect kids to turn 18. Okay, now you can self-manage, right? It's like, no. Actually, you've got to build that capability. And so, totally. For younger kids, you're actually going to go, you know what? The devices are over here, and at the time that it's appropriate, we're going to grab that to use for this purpose, and then we put it back. And so we start to build that habit of, oh, cool, this is actually a tool for me to do something with, just like a pen is, just like a hammer is, like the awesome robot kit over here. It's another type of tool that teaches me something, and there's times where it's appropriate and there's times where it's not. And then you start to build up that complexity as as students age.
I think there are so many diverse ways we can use different styles of tech in the classroom that are appropriate to what we're doing, which I think is kind of... Oh, you can! I'm not saying are they learning by play or are they just playing? Same deal with the phone. If I'm going to send you out to make a political broadcast because we're studying government systems, are you just out there running around doing silly things to put on TikTok, or are you actually working towards your project at the end? And you're right, kids and young adults cannot necessarily self-manage straight away, and we need to scaffold that for them.
And that instruction is better than student-directed instruction, finding little bits of data and statistics.
Self-picking your way through the research to go, here's the reports that actually fit for what I want to say right now.
Gotcha.
And because we all know it isn't just about handing over the power to the students and sitting back and going, right, come back to me in an hour when you've learned some stuff.
I'm going to give me some rest time.
Our role as a teacher in many ways actually becomes more complex because we're not just thinking about what is the knowledge that they need to know, what are the skills they need to develop, and how is these technologies and tools going to leverage and help them learn those things.
Well, it's it actually becomes that digital literacy thing, right? I can look at 5 different sources and see this is actually the more valid one and why, or these 3 are saying this, so actually maybe there's more to that side of it, and I can start to put together those arguments. And it's the same way that it's almost that same thing as that multiple modes of communication. I can look at a video, I can look at text, I can look at this. Well, actually, I can actually gather my stuff and work out what is the best way for me to communicate my information.
Exactly right. I mean, there's a growing movement. We're looking at the idea of choice boards, where you give students a task, and there is a choice of ways of creating it, which will be appropriate for different students, and so choice boards are a fantastic
design
thing.
for learning.
There you go. That's another. Is that another? Are we ticking that one off as well? In the jar. There we go. Done. Nice work. I like it.
That's like your old learning agency video from years ago, where you described the latest buzzword at the time with about 17 other buzzwords.
For those of you playing along at home, has anyone got bingo yet?
And our young people's brains.
I worry about it with me at times, because absolutely there's times when I go, man, I've been at my desk and I've been looking at this device for so long and I'm starting to go fuzzy. I've got to get up and I've got to walk. And the kids at school and the other teachers all know when I've had enough of staring at my screen, because I'm up over it, not with any real intent purpose, but just like hey, what are you guys up to? What are you learning about? What are you looking? And they're like, oh, over your screen, eh? It's like, yeah, I am.
Yeah.
The stuff you're doing is really more exciting. And I think, and I actually talk quite openly about that with the kids because I want them to think about that as well. they don't get that much of a chance to just sit there for hours, like you can when you're sitting behind the principal's desk. But like it is that thing of actually, if you're open in those conversations, and so they see, there's adults think about how long have I been looking at a device, then actually they think about it. And I mean, there's some of the kids at our school, have the things where after so much screen time, it will actually lock on them.
Yeah.
And
Gotcha,
and so halfway through the day, and you ask them to do something.
I keep putting those on for one day and then turning them off on my mobile phone.
Yeah.
And that's a really cool thing on both the big operating systems, is that they do have that screen time.
Yeah.
You can have a look and go, whoa, really? That much?
Yeah.
And
Okay.
and so that way, when you ask him to do something at 2:00 in the afternoon, he's like, my screen's just locked on me. And it's like, well, think about what you've got to get through in the day, and if you've and if you've spent from 7 to 8:30 in the morning looking at that device the whole time on the bus, that side of things, and actually you are going to run out of it at the time that you most need it.
And
There was again, kind of taking anecdotes and little tidbits from different people I've seen. There was a teacher I saw who do a 5-minute brain break in the middle of a class. So an hour long, after 30 minutes, it was a 5-minute brain break, and it was just like, de-stress, decompress a little bit, focus yourselves again, look around, stretch your eyes, have a little walk if you want, then back into it. And the kids are far more productive if you let them do that,
When I first shifted into like the 90-minute, 100-minute blocks when we first opened up at Hobsonville Point, and co-teaching with Danielle there, and we used to build that in the middle. There was particularly like just one class that we were teaching where like they had a real group of students that really needed that break in the middle.
Right.
And so what we would do is we'd actually try to build in some type of brain break that actually linked to what we were doing, but just got them up and moving again. And so, at the time being a science teacher, and we were looking at sort of science of evolution and things like that. And so, like their walk had to be like that. Basically, there were like no limb, sort of like no joints, and so they had to walk like this, or actually they're really wobbly and there's no real structure to it. And
like
so,
that old
it was,
Gary Larson cartoon, the boneless chicken ranch.
Yes. And actually sort of get them to walk like that. So they have this little brain break, they have a bit of a laugh, but it's still actually, it's just that presses that reset button and gets them go, okay, cool. And actually what we found often at that point, you would then get the conversations about what they were doing, and there were other valuable additions to just the little brain break.
And I think it's that remembering that not all screen time is equal as well. Like I often sit there and I look at my youngest daughter, who has often got multiple screens going on at different times, and I go, oh my God, that's terrible. And then I talk to her, and the other day that she'd been doing art lessons, she'd showed me some incredible artwork she's done, and she's decided to teach herself sign language. And so she'd actually been, and she'd found a whole lot of things that she was teaching herself sign language. So I think it's important that we actually take stock of what's happening.
It wasn't just the 27th episode that day of the one show.
Yeah, that was the adult in the room.
That was clear.
But and that's the thing I'm conscious of actually, and what I want to stop myself doing is when I'm like in the evening and I catch myself doing the scroll of death. And it's that like I'm looking through Facebook,
trying to find something,
and then Instagram, and then I go to Pinterest and I go, I don't even know what I'm actually looking at.
But I'm going to pin it because I don't know, it looks good.
And I've gone brain dead, and then I'll go back to the other platform. And I know that's something I want to work on myself. And when I was at Edutech last year, I met Jocelyn Brewer, who's developed an incredible website called Digital Nutrition. And she does fantastic stuff talking about promoting digital health. And I really like her bench. So she's pro technology, but she's also pro getting away from your devices and recognising that it's important to maintain balance. And we need to do that in the classroom.
And I think if you look at that over a week of a student's life at school, and actually go, there are a couple of days where actually it might be kind of screen heavy because of the stuff they're doing at that time. But actually, chances are there's a couple of days where they might have either no screen or half an hour of a screen. I know, like the kids at our school, are, in their timetable in term 1, actually the kids from about year 6 upwards on Wednesdays, their entire day is actually outdoors.
Yeah.
And they do on term one. It's nice weather, so we're making the most of the local community. You know, so there will be other days, obviously, where they're going to be working on devices and things, but we're balancing that out across the week by actually lots of other types of learning.
I've just noticed Stephen Lethbridge is asking when the talkback section begins. He doesn't actually realise there's already 2 Stephens in the room, and we've reached our Stephen quota. So sorry, Stephen.
Wow.
Is that because he's a step hen?
Yeah.
You just lost yourself a viewer right
Yeah.
there. I mean, interesting thing about...
But
about
yes,
this-
Stephen, we are looking at the questions coming up.
Yeah, we mean Steve. That one. An interesting thing for me is I remember talking, when I talk to beginning teachers, say, follow a kid for a day. So often you follow, as a beginning teacher, you follow a class.
Mm-hmm.
Follow one kid. And as an educator, if you follow a kid around school, it's really interesting to see exactly what their day is like. And I remember doing this after going to a conference and sitting down all day and being talked at all day and coming away going, this must be what it's like to sit in class. And so follow a student for a day, see the things they're doing and see kind of how much time they're spending online. Is it really appropriate? Is it just wasting time?
And we have to make sure that that technology isn't actually making teaching and learning less creative
Totally.
than it has been in the past. And and I think there's a real
The-
risk
the-
of us defaulting to some, you've talked about this, the SAMR stuff and us doing substitution, but sometimes it can be even worse than substitution. It can actually be a step backwards in terms of teaching and learning.
The first time that I did a shadow a student day, and I'd just come in from a PE lesson, and they sat down and straight into an English thing. I'm like, but it's actually just really hot in here. Some of those types of things that you just don't actually sort of really think through. But it was amazing as it got through to the afternoon, and on that, and it was just happened to be that day, like the class had used devices a lot, and some of the kids had older devices that the battery was starting to go.
Right.
And actually, but the rule in the school at the time was that kids were not allowed to plug their devices in. It's like, so if we've got a BYOD policy, but we're not allowing them to charge their devices throughout the day, how have we thought this through?
So it's got to be a device that lasts 7 hours.
You partake in Shadow a Day as part of like a... Don't they have like a date?
So
and a week
there
or
is
challenge?
there is an international one that D School out of Stanford sort of broadcast, and it's normally late February, early March, I think, from memory. But their resources are actually available. If you sign up, you get access to a whole bunch of amazing resources. So you go through the day, and you actually, as well as actually doing the work that the student does through that day, there's little reflection prompts throughout the day, and then at the end of the day to kind of help you unpack what you've actually learned.
Sure.
And so those resources are available at any time. And I know that the 21st Century Skills Lab with their internships have actually got the businesses that where they've paired up about 18, I think, educators from around the country with local businesses.
And we'll be having them here in the studio in 2 weeks'
Oh,
time.
boom, look at that.
There you go. There's a nice plug.
Actually,
No,
did
I
not know that.
You probably would have if you read the notes.
And the business person is actually going to go and visit the school and do a shadow student day to actually go, what is it like to be a student in this school? Before then the teacher goes and gets to actually shadow them in their workplace and go, right, how can we work together? But it is an amazing empathy tool to actually find out what is life like as a student in this school.
Totally right.
And I think, regardless of technology, it's a really important opportunity for teachers to understand what it's like for them and making sure that we're doing it thoughtfully.
Definitely.
And thoughts on around social media and what we should be doing about it. Anything?
Yeah. Wow. Okay. It's an interesting one.
Yeah.
But everything we do, it's the Simon Sinek. Why are we doing this? Why would we have a Twitter feed from our classroom? I was teaching an IB geography lesson on globalization, and one of the tasks that Richard Alloway said was, send a tweet out. Send a tweet out and say, hey, I'm teaching my class about globalization. Where are you seeing this tweet in? And my tweet went around the world multiple times. Yeah. And all of a sudden you can see this idea of globalization and you can connect with people. So in that way, I think social media can be amazing. Getting coverage for kids' work, publicising kids' work. If you want to give kids an authentic audience, social media is there in whatever shape or form it may be. But, you've also got to pair that along with a bit of learning.
Yeah.
Like you say, we can't just kind of open the door and go for it.
Yeah.
You guys are now going to be on YouTube 7 hours a day. Are they? Do we really want that? What are we doing?
Yeah.
A live feed from our
Yeah,
house.
totally right.
Camera up in the corner.
Yeah, again, I think it comes back to that. Why would we do it?
Yeah.
Why would we do it? And there are some really good reasons. Perhaps you're looking at marketing, then social media is a way to do it.
Yeah.
If you're looking at
Looking
a
to
historical
audiences,
lesson, maybe it's not the right way to look at it.
And I think, to me, that also links back with one of the things that we talked about last week, the whole thing where schools now actually have one of their guidelines is around emotional safety. It's the first time it's actually been in there. And so I think it comes down to actually around the digital citizenship type ideas, actually thinking about what are the reasons you'd use this, how are the ways we use it safely, and actually using it as teaching opportunities.
And I just want to take this opportunity to do a bit of a plug for NetSafe. So NetSafe have got the opportunity for schools to become NetSafe schools, which is really useful.
Awesome.
But I was having a look on it today, and in terms of any parents or teachers wanting to just get a quick snapshot and understand new social media, wanting to understand TikTok or whatever, you can go to NetSafe, the parents page, and there's a great guide.
There's some great
Common Sense Media is another one that's fantastic.
Big Internet Awesome is a program developed by American educators looking at how to stay safe online, gamified for the younger kids. Really, really engaging way of looking at being safe online.
And I can see Kerry Thompson's just put a comment in the DisruptEd group watching this about the NZ Read Aloud. And so actually using Twitter with that, and it's actually allowing kids to engage with the authors of the books that they're reading, and that side of things. So there's some really amazing positive examples.
Oh, we think about ourselves as educators and who we've connected with in our our PLNs and our genuinely global as a result of Twitter, as a result
Twitter
of
was where I
Facebook.
did all my educational reading.
Yeah.
Now, I don't mean just the 140 characters, but you go...
the links, the blogs.
Were we supposed to go beyond that?
I think so. But the stuff...
Miss Blinkist.
the connections I've made through that are amazing, and the resources I've read I would never seen by sitting around in my classroom. A really great example of social media use is the Mania Kalani Trust, who basically have an ongoing Twitter feed about all their kids' learning, which is absolutely fantastic. So if you want to see something fantastic, if I said fantastic lots of times, if there's something that's really authentic in a New Zealand setting, look at the Mania Kalani Trust and what they're doing around. Just go their webpage and have a look at any of their schools. You'll see some amazing uses of Twitter there.
For a long time.
They have been there for a very long time.
A lot of powerful research.
Oh, they've been doing a very, very long
research. If you go to their
research.
website, I know there's been some really interesting findings about the outcomes of the work that they've been doing.
Amazing. And as you're saying, lower decile schools and using some digital devices really, really well. For some amazing learning outcomes. I think that's the big thing. What other learning outcomes, again, comes back to why would we do it?
We used to bang on about the concept of digital citizenship, but it nearly feels like a bit of an outmoded concept now.
I know it seems like it's disappeared a little bit
think
off the radar.
Yeah.
And I hope that's because it's actually just become a natural part of what we do in schools.
Yeah.
I fear it's just kind of become because but also because so many other things are put on schools. You've got to teach this, you've got to teach this. Add this in, and so they're kind of piling more and more, and it's slid away a bit.
Yeah.
I do like the idea of like the start of year digital license. Like before I can start really running away with my device and working away independently, I've got to prove that actually I know how to do this safely, and I can tell a fake website from a real website, or I can actually work out who is the actual political lobby group behind this type of a website. Show my social science bias here.
The Spaghetti Harvest is a great one. Look it up, Google it, Spaghetti Harvest. Let's be. I'll throw it out here. Do we actually need to spend some time actually looking at the teacher's understanding of digital citizenship, and where does the best amount of effort go? Because I think there needs to be an understanding that everyone needs to understand what it means. Everyone needs to understand being safe online. Everyone needs to understand the complexity of different websites and which is the best one before we can actually model it really, really well. And how many of us have clicked on that link on that social media page and accidentally installed something, or accidentally sent that weird message to all our friends? Do we understand what we're doing?
Well, and how regular it is to see someone's Facebook post of it, please ignore any of the messages you've got from me. I clicked the link. And it's like, well, actually, if we're still making those mistakes,
Yeah.
Actually, we need to make sure that kids know how to avoid that.
Totally right.
Yeah.
Totally
Yeah.
right. Yeah.
So what do you do? What do you do? You've got your start of year stuff. I must admit, one thing I'm aware of in a senior school, I was much better in a junior context doing that stuff.
Yep.
And actually, sometimes we forget with the older
In a
students
senior, you just expect
that
it.
we do need to actually press pause and talk about the stuff quite regularly.
Is that
One
because
thing-
they're digital natives and they've grown up with this?
Oh, I hate that.
They know exactly how to do that. Yeah,
They know
They are
exactly how to
so
do
good at
TikTok.
self-managing.
So we're going
Not
to
how
throw,
to- yeah.
throw a sheet in front of them, and they're going to do a pivot table on it and produce a graph. No,
Yeah.
no, probably not. Are they going to update their Insta feed? Yes, they probably are. Is that
Yeah.
being a digital native?
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't think so.
Yeah, I was at a conference last year, and I can picture the guy, and I can't think of his name, an Australian guy who helped to create like a digital license thing over there for a whole bunch of schools.
Right.
And I really actually have been thinking through that. It'd be really cool to actually be able to create a license that, you know, that basically schools can go into each year, and, you know, obviously different for different ages.
Yeah, yeah.
That actually then shows actually at the start of each year we regain that license. And for a year 12 or 13, it's going to be far more critical than what it, you know, in terms of its angle of what you're doing than
Yeah.
what it is for like a, you know, a 7-year-old.
Yeah.
But actually to have that graded license that basically goes, yep, perfect. This is, you know, I've now proven that I'm okay with this, and it's, you know, you keep getting retested for your license.
Yeah,
I'm going to
yeah.
sign you up to work with NetSafe. Okay?
Yeah, well, it seems a no-brainer
Yeah,
to
yeah.
me,
And
but it's just actually about the right group of people getting together with the time and going, this is what we're going to create and
And
do.
I think that's a really important point, is that the big thing is, you know, when you're a classroom teacher and you're sitting there and you're going, well, who's going to do it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I'm not.
Because
I
I've got
have
everything.
this much of stuff to
Yep.
do.
Yeah.
And, you know, who's going to do it for me, and what is the product we're going to use? You know, is there anything? You know, there's the Google Applied Digital Skills, where you can work through a series of digital type lessons and come out with a badge at the end. Lots of American schools use the idea of digital badging,
Yeah.
where you do something, hand in, you get a badge. You know, so it's that kind of idea. But I think it's a really good point. Who's going to do it? Who's got the time? Maybe that's somewhere where some central fund needs to go to produce
Yeah,
this
and
stuff.
I think we do have. I mean, I need to probably expose my cards in terms of my role. I sit on the board at NetSafe. I have done for some years, and they're in a really exciting point at the moment where they are doing some real push around the NetSafe in schools, and so you
Good.
can become
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
NetSafe school, and
Perfect.
they're really keen to partner with schools and support them through this journey. So they're a really good go-to resource, and I know with Google there's plenty of training educators can do for themselves, but that does rely on the individual educator
It does.
to
Yeah.
get on board and do those lessons and workshops
And have
as
the
well.
time, as you say.
Yeah.
You know, it's
And
that
that's-
time thing.
And, yeah, of course, because I can remember at the time getting really excited about the idea and going, right, that's it. We're going to create this. And it was at
It
the,
doesn't sound like
yeah,
you, Steve, at all.
it was at the Independent Schools Conference, and I remember talking to a couple of people from the board and going, why don't we create an Independent Schools digital license? You know, like basically pick a few people from across different schools, get them together. We could really do this, and there was all this excitement there on that day, and then of course everyone gets back and they're doing everything else that's going on,
Yeah.
and it's sat there as an idea.
Totally right. Totally right.
And I just saw a question coming up from Malcolm there about any info that you've got the schools that are not fully digitally embraced environment, as you know, a lot of people will be in that space of, you know, being a bit of a lone nut in their school or someone that's passionate about it.
I love that video.
And I come back to that concept that we talked years around about Hack Your Classroom. I mean, one of the joys of not being in an MLE is you can do whatever the hell you want in the four walls. of the
No one can
classroom.
see.
And you know, and I encourage educators just to get on and do it within their context. And yep, you might have challenges because you might not have one-to-one devices.
But
there's a heck
but
of a
actually,
lot you can
there's
do
some,
without one-to-one
there is
devices.
really creative learning you can do
Yeah.
with a few devices with a group of kids.
Yeah.
I mean, I would argue that, you know, that almost you can do better learning having 2-to-1. The
Yeah.
two of you talking, sitting in front of one device,
Yeah.
or 3 of you together with one device, the discussion and the collaboration that can go on offline
Yeah.
to produce the end product,
It's
again,
probably more powerful than one.
thinking about what you're going to be doing after
Yep.
school
Yeah.
is probably where our skills should be sitting. And maybe sitting down and bashing away on a keyboard by ourselves is not the best way to use it.
Yeah.
You know,
So
I
you're
mean,
right. It doesn't have to be one. One-to-one obviously is the best
Yeah.
for doing a range of things, but some things put 1 to 3.
well,
And-
just like different devices are good for different things.
Yeah.
Totally right.
That's-
Yeah.
Totally
And I think I found in the early days where they might have not had one-to-one computers, but they had technology sitting in their pockets.
Mm-hmm.
It was thinking about the way they could capture stuff and utilise their phones as a voice recorder, I think. And actually guiding them through all of the stuff that's on their phones as different tools that they don't necessarily use. Like, students don't know the voice recorder. They don't use voice recorder. But you only have to show them how to use it and how to use it on the computer and all the rest of it. And,
that's like when you first show them voice to text.
Yeah. Well, that's a perfect example, and that's a space I'd probably play in if I was in a less, them using what they do have, and them working in groups with a single device, and and tacking into some of the other. What other things would you be doing?
Post-its.
Post-its.
Yes. Anyone's ever walked into one of my teaching areas, they know that post-its are going to be
actually,
far more than.
Seriously, if you look at the coding courses that were developed that Jared was working on, what's the one down Tim Bell's stuff?
Yep.
That's all done.
The unplugged.
Yeah, it's all analog.
I had kids coding me moving across the room last year. So we have these giant Lego blocks. Like each block is about the size. They're different colours, and so like we just said, look, a yellow is basically move forward one square of the carpet. A red is stop. There's left, right, and things. I had some of the carpet tiles had like piles of Lego on it or pictures of bombs and things. So if I ended up there, I couldn't get it, and then they had to like get me to the place where I could dig for treasure. Like it's really simple. That actually takes no device, but actually helps them to understand how does this work. So when we do that and then we get Lego robots out later,
there you go,
they understand it.
And if we think technology beyond just being at your computer, you had some fantastic lessons where you were just pulling apart old stuff.
How does it work?
Favourite lessons.
I remember I had a friend online the other day that was looking at different commercially packaged STEM projects for her daughter, her daughter, and I said, forget that. Just get some old stuff, pull it apart, get some,
go to Spotlight.
Play-Doh, get that recycled crap, and work with bits and pieces. And, people like Michelle Dickinson and her cookbook that she's done, it's all based around the concepts of household and found items that you can be doing, because, of course, technology goes beyond the computer and sitting in front of a laptop.
Well, the digital technology curriculum talks about computational thinking. Yeah. And so everyone goes, well, we've got to get computers. But no, I mean, computational thinking is a basic yes-no. Yeah. And that's how we can break it right down to the most simple idea. And you can have it completely offline, completely analog. Is that happening, yes or no? Yeah. What's going to happen next? That. And you think about almost the old writing a twister plot story. How does that work, yes or no? Yeah. Yes, we can take it digital. But maybe, as you say, start off with some really simple understandings, then build on it before you let it loose.
And some of those, particularly the early learning progressions, just actually the kids understanding, once I've done my work and I put it up onto this platform, and that allows these people to see it, well, actually, you're actually meeting some of those early learning progressions. So it's actually really accessible for teachers that haven't got access to lots of things. And so actually once I've done their work, actually then being able to, right, you're the ones that are up to the publishing side of it now. Away you go.
Katrina Ward's just done all the work for us. She's written digital technology badges for computational thinking.
Perfect.
Excellent.
Yep.
Done.
Well done.
Well
done. And I think chances are there's a whole bunch of teachers out there. Like really enthusiastic teachers that have spent time doing all of this stuff, but they're in pockets around the place.
If only there was a way we could all connect.
Maybe it's with the technology.
Crikey.
Here we go.
So just before we finish up, because I realise we're probably running out of people's attention span if we didn't half an hour ago, on the horizon, I mean, we hear all the talk about big data, artificial intelligence, cyborgs taking over our classroom. What do we think is the most exciting stuff on the horizon at the moment?
I really love looking at AI with kids and getting them to think, what's this? And even just those initial discussions about the difference between machine learning and AI, and then actually thinking in which types of things are these going to be there, because it does have an impact on careers and things future-wise as well. And we've got some amazing companies here in New Zealand doing awesome things. Soul Machines and Amy, the maths tutor, I think they've just released their latest update. There's some really awesome examples of it out there that for Kiwi kids to actually go, awesome. I mean, we had a couple of people come in last year and talk about the work that they were doing in the area of AI with our kids, and you could just see these kids that love technology going, oh my goodness, like there's totally jobs for me to go after in this area. And you could see others as you get to the conversations of, well, actually those customer service reps, chances are they might not be, so, because if that one face or that one screen can absorb that information about you and then spread it out to every other version of itself everywhere. That's going to learn far quicker than that one customer service rep trying to pass that information on.
We've been talking about learning analytics for a long time and it hasn't really gone anywhere. Is it just me, or we've been talking about that fact of that increasingly our computers can capture the data about us and our learning patterns and our learning things, and I think we're gonna. I feel like it's sort of come to a bit of a, I don't know. It doesn't seem to be going anywhere in terms of. I remember being at conferences a few years ago that had all these grand claims about how we were going to use learning patterns and learning habits, and we were going to design and.
I think there were the whole privacy Big Brother things where people are like, maybe not. Let's not collect that much data on kids. I think that definitely will hold it up for a bit.
Yeah,
I think it's allowed a lot of sort of really, because New Zealand is really different to a lot of places where we are massively spread out and there are little pockets of learning going on. And I think, well, it's not different to lots of places, but there are lots of places like that. But the technology has allowed those pockets to come together in maybe a digital cluster, if you like, of schools, connecting schools across the world. And I think that, for me, is the real power of this stuff, is connecting people across New Zealand or across the world. And some of the cool things about AR and VR is the kids with different abilities being able to be brought into a classroom and being able to provide feedback, for instance, through AR-based camera tools, for instance. Making music by just moving your hands or moving your head, understanding how to draw by moving your hand. It makes different noises, so you can begin to draw things. So I think it's kind of looking at those sort of things and how can we actually make accessibility much better. Look at the closed captions that are on YouTube now. Or even slides having captions as you speak. Or the speak-to-text things they're talking about. So if a kid's not a great writer, get them to say their whole essay, and then go back and critique it.
For kids with dyspraxia and things, actually, like where that writing actually is painful for them to do, the ability to still be able to communicate that information.
Our online friend Richard Wells talking about using voice to text to write blog posts, and I think much of chunks of his book was written through voice to text.
I think a whole lot of his writing is in the initial bit, and then he goes through and does the editing.
So making sure we're using it in that way.
Interesting point just there from Bruce Hammond's. If an interested parent were to visit a modern school, what would they observe and what evidence of learning might they see? And that's definitely one thing I noticed when people were initially going to all the device stuff. So everything was online, it was shared sometimes between the kids on the on the docs, or between the kids and the teacher, but actually not so much up on the walls for kids to be able to discuss.
The visible artifacts of learning.
And so I know we've had a really big push last year on regularly updating those actual learning examples on the wall so that you capture the learning, not just an outcome.
I know people that have visited High Tech High, and one of the things that come away is the incredible amount of work they have up on the walls and demonstration of learning. And we can lose that. I think,
so it's about sharing at milestone points, or actually here's using it as reflection points for kids to go. So what have we done today? How can we show that? What's that bit?
And also thinking about your platform you're using. Are the other parents able to see what's going on right now? Can the parents interact with what's going on in the class? And is there a way to share what your kid is doing with their parents? Because it then changes the conversation to what did you do at school today? I saw you.
I've already seen this.
I jumped in for 5 minutes in my lunchtime and had a quick look at that. And I saw you did that really cool thing. Tell me about that. So it changes that learning conversation and the ability digitally to bring our parents in and share the learning. Hugely powerful because it does change that learning conversation.
Awesome. Okay, well, I think we're getting about to the end of our time, but I know that we've probably only glided across the surface of this topic.
Slid
across the surface. Let us know if there's anything you'd like us to revisit, to come back to do a deep dive in. Also, who would you like us to try and reach out and talk to? I noticed Vivian from OMG Tech popped up on the screen there and had joined us at some stage. Be fantastic to get OMG Tech in and hear what they're doing and the sorts of things they're going on. It's shoulder tap soul machines. I think they should talk to us. But, who are the people that you'd like to hear from? What are the topics you'd like to get us to cover? Next week, with it being Waitangi Day, we won't be on air, but we will be back 2 weeks from today.
You will be, I won't be.
Yes, he'll be swanning off to
the US to go and visit a school over there which is doing some really amazing stuff in the area of sustainability. So I'm hoping that I'll get to share some of that later on when I'm back.
Yeah, so 2 weeks from now, it'll be me in the studio with Justine and Faye from 21C Skills Lab, and we're going to be talking about their edternship, but also the future of work, and also what are the skills that our young people need to know, and what do they need to be able to do if they want to not just survive, but actually thrive in the world that we live in now. Cool. So do keep sharing with us your ideas for future episode topics. Let us know what we should be talking about. Until then, have a fantastic day tomorrow at school if you're an educator or a student. Otherwise, we'll see you back online in a couple of weeks' time.
Yeah, right.
Cool.
Ka kite.
Ka kite.